Hello everybody, and welcome back to this AT4 rocket modelling tutorial. At the moment we are going to be modelling the AT4 heat missile, which is the ammo what the AT4 rocket launcher actually shoots. So what we've got at the moment is this rocket right here. We're going to be using this as our reference image. Obviously the quality doesn't matter so much, we just want to get a general idea for the shape of the actual missile. And once we get the missile modelled, we've already done the rocket launcher in the previous tutorial, we can move on to the texturing, lighting and rendering after Charlie's segment. So let's jump right into it. We basically want to follow the same steps we did last time, so set our viewport to the right viewport, and we want to press D on the keyboard and make sure we're in the background tab. Go to the right perspective tab, and in our disk file we want to bring in our reference image. Now as you can see, our reference image is not centered directly on the world 0, so what we want to do is bring up our thing again, and as you can see we have image offset, so we want to probably leave that at 0 and set this one to -0.3, and that will put it roughly in the center of the world, maybe -0.2325. There you go. So now we don't have to worry about having to move any of our actual geometry. It should just be scaling it outwards. Alright, so let's jump right into it. Let's bring in a tube, as we usually do. Press enter to center it in the world. We want to rotate it 90 degrees. Excuse me. We want to scale it down till it's roughly about the height of it. Okay, and now we want to scale it outwards, about the length of the actual rocket missile, sorry, and move it downwards a little bit. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to do the same thing as last time. We want to turn the columns up to 50 from 12, so the divisions are stronger and it's smoother. And we also want to turn on end caps this time. And what that will do, if we go into our perspective viewport, it will add giant discs on the back, and it should not be this wide. That's an issue I need to deal with actually, because you should never edit anything in the right viewport. So always do it in the perspective viewport, because then that will happen. And what we want to do is scale it out again. Press Control 3 to bring up our reference image, and we are moving it. We want to scale it down and bring it out. That'll do. Now, like I said, just go in columns 50, end caps on, and as you can see it adds a little it just covers the whole end instead of having it open. So now that we've got that in place, this is a cylinder, a closed cylinder with 50 divisions all around it, we can move on to the next segment. Okay, so jumping ahead a little bit, what I've done is I've basically taken our tube and I have put a multitude of edge loops into the geometry along where the points of the inclines are for the actual reference image. And after that I applied a glass material, which is simply just dragging it into your material palette here, and then just dragging this glass thing to your cylinder. This recording software I use doesn't quite like me doing it, so I've had to do it off screen. But yeah, the edge loop we used in our previous tutorial, so if you're not quite sure how it works, you basically just click up here in the polygon tab, this edge loop button, and you can create an edge loop wherever you wish, and just by left clicking, and it will make it so that you can only select like those certain things. It basically divides up the geometry more. Okay, so now that we've got that, we can begin to sculpt our actual thing, and we can also see through it now, so we can see what we want to sculpt to. So what we want to do is make sure this is 100% fitting the entire scene, or reference image rather. So let's bring it out a little bit more. There we go. Now what we want to do is using our going into our primitives up here, we want to there's some trouble, my mouse is not liking it again. Make sure we select our geometry, and then we can begin to scale it up and down. So if we make sure we always use our perspective tab. As I said before, it can screw up a little bit. Sorry, that's the wrong thing. There we go. So we just want to make it the rough size and scale of it. For some reason my geometry is rotated slightly, so all I'm going to do is select it all and rotate it ever so slightly. Okay, alright, I see the issue. Okay, what we want to do is basically go up into our model, if this happens to you. If it doesn't, just ignore me. We want to have our model selected, and we want to center pivot. Now what that will do is put the pivot point right in the center of the geometry, so we can just move it back now. There we go. This reference image is not the best, but it's the only one I could find what was of a decent detail. The rest were just schematic type issues. Okay, so we can carry on. Basically we want to go back to our primitives, select our thing with our cursor, and just continue to scale it up and down. Make sure we always use the outer, it's very scaled down, but make sure we always use the outer red one which says XYZ on it, so we can properly get an idea of or move all of the axes at once. Otherwise we'll be making some weird shapes what we don't want to make. Okay, so we want to keep this body about the same because we scaled it to that at the beginning, and then these two we will make about that small, and then oh sorry, that's the wrong order, and then we want to make this lot that small. Okay, so obviously we can't follow this reference image too much because I think the depth of field is a bit too close in order to get a flat image. But we've basically got the shape of the missile here, excluding the tail fins and the details and all that. So yeah, we're basically done with this segment, ensuring that you've got end caps on and all that. So yeah, on to the next segment. Okay, so what we want to do from this point is get rid of this glass material since we're not going to need it anymore. So just go onto your material palette, select the glass and delete it so it's back to the normal plain texture. Looks pretty good so far. We might need to extend the end a little bit when we add the tail fin in, so let's do that now. If we go to our primitives, go back to our OBJ, go into our missile body, we can then select the end of our end cap here, and then using the move tool we scale it out until we reach about the end of our reference image here. And what we want to do at this point is let's bring in a box, and we want to bring in the box, bring it into world 0, where we'll move it along a tiny bit, and what we'll do here is we'll make the tail fins. So what we want to do is scale this down a little bit till we can get an idea of what exactly we are working with. Let's try and get the same height on each of these. So copy that value and put it in here, so it's dead center. Oh, that was not what I wanted to copy and paste. Control C. Control V. There we go. Okay, now that's dead center in the missile. We want to scale it out to about there. Doesn't have to be exact on the reference image. And we bring it out there. Look to the back. And now what we want to do is make it as thin as we reckon the tail fin will be, which I reckon it'll probably be about that. Let's move it along a little bit, so it's about the length of this cylinder here. Scale it out a little more. There you go, that'll do. Okay, so I'd also recommend that you save pretty often, as especially when scaling. This software is known to crash. Alright, so after saving, what we basically want to do is we'll be using this as a template for all of them. We'll be copying and pasting it around. But first of all, we need to get the bevel, which is on this bit here. So in order to do that, we want to go up to our polygon tab, and with our edges selected, nothing else but our edges, we want to select the two edges, and then we want to, in our polygon tab, do poly bevel. And I do believe I've done that wrong. I need to actually be in the object, so it should work now. There we go. So it while in the object, not outside the object like I was. You need to probably set the bevel to about, well, we can use the reference image here, so probably about 0.11, 0.11, and yeah, we can keep it on chamfer. That's about how we want it. So we got the tail fin done. Now what we want to do is copy and paste it, so ensuring that the pivot is dead center, which I believe it is. Yep, it's dead center. All we literally have to do here is copy and paste it. So control, well, select, well, with let's call this tail fin. With this selected, we want to go Control C and then Control V. Now we've got two here. Now what we want to do is find which axis we need to turn it. So do that, and then we just do 45. And there we go. Exact same position, it's just rotated slightly. And then obviously repeat the process. So Control C, Control V. Now the one we just rotated has been duplicated again, and now we want to do 90. Okay, and then one more. So Control C, Control V. Then we want to do 135, I believe. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so that's the tail fin done. So we basically have the main body of the rocket done. Now the only thing what's left is to begin adding the detail with these holes. Maybe excluding these back holes, but I can definitely implement these holes on the body here. Okay, so join me back for the next segment when we will do that. Okay, so now that we've got the tail fin and the main body done, all what's left is these little holes. So what we want to do is bring in a tube and let's place it at dead center as we can on there. Do the usual stuff to it, make it 50 columns, bring its radius scale down to about the width of one of the holes, so maybe about 0.045, about that. Then we want to move it as close as we possibly can to the actual hole, or in line with the hole rather. Let's do the furthest left one. Okay, so now that we got that, we want to position it properly, and go up in our perspective view. We want to basically, since these are coming out the like at an angle, the top left and the bottom left, both sides, what we want to do is get this dead center or as center as possible, just so each part of the cylinder is going out the bottom and the top. And then we want to go out of the tube, and then we want to rotate it 45 degrees. Sorry, we want to make sure the pivot is centered in it first, and then we want to rotate it 45 degrees so it stays within the pipe, still within the center, similar to what we did at the back with the tail fin. So now that it's there, we basically want to copy and paste this. This is where our network node area might get a bit jumbled, so make sure you move the tube object away. We want to copy and paste this, so we'll move this along about, what's the starting one? Okay, so 0.3. Let's say we'll move this along about 0.6, and then we make this one minus 0.3. We want them all to be an equal distance apart, so once again copy and paste, trying to make sure that we keep them as organized as possible after each one. So we'll move this one along, make this one minus 0.9, so it's equal distance again, and we want to do this 2 more times, so copy and paste, tube object 4, make this one minus 1.2, and then finally we copy and paste it 1 more time, copy and paste, and make this one 1.5, minus 1.5. So they're all equal distance apart, doesn't matter whether they're synced up to the thing or not, we just want to get a general shape. And alright, so what we want to do now is select them all, let's try and get it lined up with the last one here. And then what we want to do is let's get the last tube object. What I want to do now is copy and paste all of these again, put them beside one another, and now what we want to do is with all these selected, we want to rotate these guys minus 45 degrees, and then what we want to do, well, with all of them selected, move them in the middle of each of these so they're in line with this hole here in between each of them. So we'll try and get them about there, that's about center, maybe a bit more. There we go. Okay, so we're all about centered. So now we have this, which doesn't look very much like the image. So what we want to do is we want to go into something new here. So we want to go to our, I believe it is the model tab, and using this Boolean tool. So what we want to do is in our view here, drag and drop a box over all of these. So we've got all of them selected. Now we want to go to our, click our Boolean tool, and you see at the bottom it says now select objects for set B. So what we want to do for that is select the rocket body or the missile body, and now we want to press enter. Now obviously this isn't what we want. We don't want things like this, but the glory of this Boolean tool is that it will bring up this Boolean tool here, and in the output geometry operations section we will change this to union. And what that will do is basically put get rid of everything what was inside the body of the rocket launcher and keep everything what was outside of it. So if we go into it here, you can see there's holes where the tubes were, but there's nothing actually inside the geometry. So all we got to do now is basically just with our primitives selected and our cursor, we just go over to these guys, drag and drop over them, and press the delete key. And we do that for all of these, making sure we don't miss any, otherwise we have some weird artifacts left around. And same with these guys. Okay, so we're basically there. We've got our holes in our thing, and all we've got to do now is make sure they're not see-through. So what we've got to do that is make sure we save it first. So let's save this as I'll do 7 because trying to make sure I have a backup. Press enter, same thing we usually do. Let's move these guys up here so we can actually see what we're doing. And now what we want to do is rotate this guy 90 degrees, go into him, smooth him out with the columns, scale him down, get him the same height as the it's now called tube object 1, it's now just one entire object, but this is basically our rocket body still, so we want to rename it that. And we want to get the same height as our rocket body. Oh, sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, so they're a little bit different. So all we got to do is basically get a cylinder in there to was just near the edge. It's relatively centered, and we need to just scale it out. So let's do that right now. So scale it out. Maybe not that far. Move it along so it's in the middle of the holes. And what that will do is if we texture this, once we get to the texturing section, we texture this black, it will give the illusion that there is some depth to the holes, but there's not like a crazy amount of room there. Okay, so that's basically it. That's the modelling portion of the missile done, and I'll see you back here for when we do the texturing for it. Thanks for watching.